webinar is on waste, the waste reduction and the journey to zero waste. We have some great speakers here today, so I'm excited to turn it over to them. Before I do that though, I just would love to share a little bit about WSBC and a couple of the upcoming events that we have. So for those of you who are less familiar with who we are, we're actually in our 15th year. Our third 3.5 years, we've been an affiliate of WMEP Manufacturing Solutions. So we are owned and operated by WMEP. And our mission is to advance sustainable principles and practices forward through the power of business. We really do this through educating, through our webinar series, through our annual conference, through our tool, the Green Masters program that helps businesses measure and improve sustainability outcomes, and through facilitating connection. And here's just a list of the different programs that we offer. Membership is sort of the primary way you can engage with us these days, as well as with our tool, the Green Masters program. I do just want to share that it's an exciting time for the Green Masters program. While this year it's the same in its current form, we will be launching next year a 2.0 version, we're calling it at this point, a brand new platform that you get to log into. It adds materiality assessment and a lot of additional priorities. So stay tuned for more information on that. We also do offer services. This has been a great ad for us in connection with WMEP as a consulting agency. So we do offer consulting services around sustainability. Our primary, I would say, core competencies here would be in water stewardship, as well as greenhouse gas tracking, and our Pathways program really helps businesses align their strategic plan and weave strategy into, or weave sustainability into their strategy, so they can move away from doing what we call sort of random acts of environmentalism or sustainability to a more strategic. So a few upcoming events. We do have a water stewardship training coming up September 1st. Our member fall connect, I guess that would be late summer, is on September 7th. If you're not a member, you can still feel free to join those and get a sense of who our membership is and what we sort of talk about. It's just a way to really virtually connect with other members and talk about what they're doing in sustainability. We will be launching a carbon working group for members in September. This has been my goal for the whole year, so really excited about creating some working groups for members, and this is going to be the first one that we're launching. So if you're actively working on greenhouse gas tracking, accounting, setting goals, this is really a working group for you to sort of cross-pollinate, share best practices, ideas, get information from other members. And then our cohort Pathways program starts in October, and we have an upcoming information session on that. So all this and more you can find at our website, wisconsinsustainability.com, upcoming events. And I have to share, I'm super excited about our 15th annual conference this year. We'll be in Green Bay at the landmark Lambeau Field. So it's actually a 2-day event this year. The Tuesday, November 15th, we're having a few facility tours in the morning. We will be also having a sort of inclusion workshop going on. And then in the evening, we're going to do our awards reception for the Sustainable Business Awards. That will be at Myron Construction facility right in Titletown. And then the following day will be the conference at Lambeau. That's Wednesday, November 6th. So please save the date. Registration should open in the next coming weeks, hopefully by the first week of September. All right, so that's what I had to share with you. I get to turn it over now to Dan from WasteCap, the Executive Director of WasteCap, to share about sort of some things you want to consider in your waste journey. And then we'll also introduce Dave with Lands End and Mark Allen at Inpro to talk about sort of their journey to zero waste. This is meant to be an interactive session, so we got a couple of good questions ahead of time. After the sort of facilitated discussion is over, you can use the chat to ask any questions that you want, or use the raise hand feature which is under reactions, if you want to speak your question. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Dion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jesse. So we're here to talk about zero waste and waste reduction efforts at businesses. WasteCap Resource Solutions, to give you a quick background on us, we've been around for 25 years helping businesses get to zero waste. We've done quite a bit over that time. We just passed the 1.1 million tons of waste diverted through our efforts with local businesses in Wisconsin. Obviously, our mission is to transform waste into resources, keeping it out of the landfill, essentially, providing waste reduction and recycling assistance for the benefit of businesses and the environment. To give a little bit of background on just Wisconsin waste, we landfill 8 million tons, plus or minus, of material every year. Of that 8 million tons, 4.5 million tons goes into municipal solid waste landfills, and 500,000 tons goes into construction waste landfills. You can see from the latest 2021, the kind of breakdown of materials, what kinds of materials are going into those categories. 45% of what we put into our municipal landfills and our construction waste landfills could have been recycled. To put that in just a really broad perspective, let's say Wisconsin businesses and residents recycled everything that possibly could every year. What would that affect? We'd be building one less landfill every year. And this is, by the way, a picture of a very small landfill. The upstream and downstream effects, we would have saved or preserved 100,000 acres of habitat every year, including 10 million trees every year. From just taking the 0.5% of the food thrown away, we would feed all of Wisconsin's hungry. It'd be 250,000 fewer garbage truck trips per year. It would save 20 million drinking water for 20 million people. That just kind of goes to show how much drinking water is consumed in mostly the production processes. We'd be able to meet 1% of our energy demand locally. One of the big pushes is to start to produce more energy in Wisconsin, since we have no natural sources of fossil fuels. We'd be able to restore 1% of our farmland every year. A lot of people don't know about the soil degradation issues we're having with our farming practices, and how we're losing about 200 farms. Is it 200 farms every year or 200 farms every month? Something like that in Wisconsin, just because we're burning out our soils. And from a greenhouse gas perspective, it's about 1.7 million hot air balloons full of greenhouse gases every year we could prevent. So big numbers, but a lot of progress we could make still. So how do we get there? You may have heard a lot of talk about the zero waste economy or the circular economy. This is taking our standard practice today, which is take, make, and waste, and turn it into take, make, remake, continually, essentially. You're going to take as many materials as you can, recycle them, reuse them, get them back to manufacturing and distributors, and then buy products that can reuse them. Benefits are reducing virgin material use, reducing non-renewable energy use, reducing pollution. Some of those numbers you can see from what I already mentioned with Wisconsin, the effects if Wisconsin recycled everything. We'd prevent losses in the material extraction sectors, gain a bit of resiliency when it comes to market shocks. With the pandemic, I think everyone's pretty used to what can happen when sources of raw materials that you need for your business are suddenly no longer available or stopped up because we're trying to get them from China or something like that. And there's gains in material transport, innovation, and reprocessing sectors, job gains in those areas as well, bringing more local jobs back to the US. You may have also heard of the waste management hierarchy. In general, reduce, reuse, recycle kind of puts it in the order of the way you should be thinking about materials at your facility and with your business. Cost reductions by reducing your material consumption, you vastly reduce your costs. It's about 1,000 times more effective to not buy something in the first place than it is to take it out of the trash and get it into recycling. You want to, from there, recycling, composting, re-earthing is next best. And then if at all possible, if you can't do any of the above, sending it to energy recovery or those single-use options such as mulching wood waste to produce mulch. It's only going, from there, it's just going to compost basically naturally, go back to the environment. So you're not getting multiple uses out of it like you might with a glass bottle, but it's better than sending it to a landfill. So circular is the goal. And this applies to basically all of the processes within your facility and the way that you go from conceiving of ways to improve, measuring those improvements, tracking those improvements, and then going back to your planning stage again and planning the next improvement, the continuous improvement cycle. It's also pretty circular. So we have two companies with us today that are going to talk about their journey to zero waste. Mark Allen with Inpro is on the way to zero waste at his facility here, his headquarters facility here in Wisconsin. And Dave Burrison with Lands End has just achieved a true zero waste certification for their headquarters facility in Dodgeville. Quite a few buildings and quite a large facility there. So we're going to dive right in with introductions. I'll let Mark take it away to summarize his position, his background, Inpro's products, size, and locations, and then Dave Burrison to let you all in on Lands End's facilities here in Wisconsin as well. And now I just have to figure out how to stop screen sharing. There we go.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Dan. And thank you, Jess, too, for inviting me to this. My name is Mark Allen. I'm the Senior Vice President of Product Management and Development at Inpro. Typically, what I found, just for the audience, is companies our size, we're a mid-market company, really don't have a senior sustainability leader. So one of the senior managers usually steps up to the plate. In this case, I volunteered. So I've been involved with the sustainability efforts here for at least the last decade. Inpro is an architecturally specified building products company. We have a good-sized campus in Muskego, Wisconsin. Globally, we employ a little over 600 people. The majority of those are in Wisconsin. And as far as our goals for achieving zero waste, we started that process almost 4 years ago. And then, I'll wait to tell my story as Dan starts firing off specific questions. But again, pleasure to be here.
Okay, Dave, can you give us an intro on your journey here, or your position, background, and product size and location?
Sure. Thanks, Dan. I'm Dave Burrison. I'm the Senior Director of Facilities and Corporate Services for Lands End. Our corporate office is located in Dodgeville, Wisconsin. We have 8 buildings on this campus. It's a little over, just under 2 million square feet. We have office, warehouse, we have a fitness center, and then just office areas. We sit on about 230 acres, and that's what kind of allows us to do things like compost and so forth. Lands End is an international retailer located this is the home base. We have 2 other facilities in Wisconsin. And then we have facilities in the UK, Germany, Japan, and Hong Kong. And we have roughly around 5,000 employees with Lands End. And that's
Great.
it. Thank you.
Excellent. So if you really think about it, aside from kind of residential trimmings, landscaping, and parks and things like that, pretty much all of our waste comes from businesses. It's the extraction, the production of materials, those materials that then are sold off to customers. So thinking about that zero waste effort for your business, I'm going to ask each Mark and Dave to talk about the why, to start with the why. What was it that really spurred your organization to set zero waste goals, and why do you continue on this journey?
Well, I can feel that first. This was a part of a bigger journey, actually, so it's only a component thereof. So I mentioned, so about a decade ago, I got involved with sustainability from an architectural standpoint and the built environment. As we went forward, we had developed an EMS team, environmental management system team, and I became a part of that. Just to understand where we are. In that team, every year we look to set goals for ourselves. And as we did that, that's when I was really introduced to WSBC and a part of the Green Masters program. So going through that survey, year after year, there were certain elements that I was picking up on that we weren't doing. And as we started to accomplish a lot of our tasks, it became apparent that we needed to take on some other issues. The zero goals across the board, whether it be your carbon footprint emissions or waste management, became self-evident for us that it was the next stage for us and going into that phase. And so for us, it was kind of a natural extension, Dan. We were just kind of looking at what do we keep doing? What's that continuous improvement look like? And it just made our radar to be able to do that. We weren't thinking at the time that we were going to go for a zero waste certification. We just wanted to understand where we were and reduce our waste to landfill. And that was the main objective in the very beginning. It kind of evolved after that through networking, talking to people, and actually contracting through WasteCap. That helped set us on a course.
Great, thank you. Dave?
Yeah, really, similar to Mark, we started recycling for a reason, really out of a need. Back in 1991 or 2 was when I first got involved. And at that point in time, it was paper, cardboard, and soda cans. I mean, that was the big things that you could recycle at that time. And our need was to get it out of our warehouse. And so we started collecting recycling at that point in time. And it continued to grow, through the 90s as more things became readily available for recycling. We continued to build on that path and build on what we can recycle. When we kind of kept on that same path, through the early 2000s. When we got to right around 2010, we went from a safety and health and recycling committee to a sustainability committee, and really pulled in more of our groups, such as our product people, really brought our facilities in. And then right after 2010-11, we too discovered WSBC. And we wanted to measure how we were. We wanted to have a tool that we could measure ourselves against others. And so we filled out the first one by gathering, I can remember we probably had 20 different people with engineers, everybody else in the room, going through the Green Masters and kind of checking the boxes and seeing what we stood. And we got really excited by the results. And we're excited about what other opportunities that lied ahead.
Excellent. You bring up a great point there that your recycling process started based off of the markets that were available. And it's a lot of people, something that a lot of people don't necessarily think about is that you need to have both, it's part of a circular economy. You need to have somebody willing to give material. You have to have someone willing to take that material and reprocess it, and then someone willing to make new products out of those materials. And it's all part of that wheel. Any bit of that is missing, and you can't, reuse or recycle materials. So Mark, your target is to be zero waste compliant by 2025. What processes have you set up to achieve that goal? And what are some of the most valuable lessons you've learned so far?
Well, great question. First of all, the 2025 was set by our senior management team with not a specific roadmap to get there. So we just set this goal and said, let's just do it. So that's how it started. As far as where we're at in this process and what we've learned, we really didn't understand our waste stream completely. So, we have for our size company, we have a good size campus here, multi-facility, and we needed to get our arms around that. And that's the reason why we contracted with WasteCap to help us understand that. Not just understanding the waste stream itself, but the what's generating that waste stream, and then how do we measure it? So we did that successfully. We went through a process then of trying to track everything. That was probably the most difficult challenge for us, is to try to make sure that we had measurables in place. Number one, setting a baseline where we're currently at, so that, and then we could measure against improvement. The second part of that is we got that pretty much in place, but we still were kind of missing a key component. And that was, we got the measurements in place, but we couldn't get the organization and people to comply with everything. And so now we had to dive back in, and we really needed employee engagement. So we did a few things that I think made a lot of sense. We had very visible about, instead of dumpster diving, we take the dumpster and we dump it out. And, we go through that process and decide, separate it out. What is in here that really could be recyclable, and what is really considered something that needs to go to a landfill. And during that time, we did almost every facility in that process. We had a number of different employees volunteer, just because apparently they like to get dirty too, right, and get it in there. And we found out that about 50% of what was going to landfill could be recyclable. And so that kind of set the engagement part up. People were very interested in, well, if that's the case, we need to have different processes and procedures on the shop floor to be able to do that. And having done that part of it, I felt pretty good, but we were still pretty far away from the diversion rate we needed. So what I did is I reached out to one of my network, my network companies, which would be Kohler, and I wanted to connect with them on their Kohler Waste Lab. And through conversations, actually through Italy, I found out that their main focus was not on the scrap itself or whatever was coming off the line. Theirs was on the upfront, which Dan in your chart alluded to. How do you not produce the scrap to begin with? And so it really focused my attention more on operations and efficiencies, better material usage and the like. So that measurement had needed to come into place. We also needed a baseline for that. So at the end, we're using a lot of our continuous improvement process, our Six Sigma work. We've had a lot of good work done in that end. And that's what we really need to continue to do. We're not where David is yet with Lands End. We're not certified. We have a ways to go, but I think we're on a good path at this point.
You mentioned some of the excellent, really core strategies that you need in place. Measurement of quantity, but also analysis of quality, right? If you're sending out 20 dumpsters of recycling, every month or something like that, do you know how much trash is that you're putting in your recycling. Those are two of those really key core baseline activities. And then from there, you start to get that data that allows you to act on it. So Dave, you've recently achieved a true zero waste certification from the WSBC for the Dodgeville headquarters campus. How are you sharing your success both internally and externally? And I know this is like really recent, so
It is really
and maybe how are you planning on sharing your success? And also, if you could go back in time, because I know it's been a journey, if you could go back in time and give yourself a brief picture of what lay ahead, what would you tell yourself to prepare yourself for that journey?
Sure. Well, first for the celebration, currently we're working with Megan from WasteCap and the USBGC. They're working with our public relations group, putting together an announcement. So once they work their way through that, then we'll figure out how we're going to do the external, and then we'll tie an internal celebration along with it for all of our employees to become aware. We're also doing a video that will go out on our Lands End SharePoint sites that we really use. We use SharePoint a lot to share all of our recycling sustainability practices with our employees. So it really is a good tool to use. Looking back, as I said in the beginning, paper, cardboard, cans. Looking back, had I known what plastic was going to become, I would have invested in plastic, 30 years ago, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. I'd be retired. But, I wish I knew all the partnerships and the people I know now earlier. I wish I would have built this relationship, a stronger relationship with our waste haulers and recyclers, right? They are key to making this thing successful. When it comes to reuse and recycling, volume is king. And what I mean by that, if you have a lot of plastic, it's easy to get rid of your plastic. And if you have a good relationship with your partners, they find a way to help you recycle. The one challenge I've had over the years was the plastic thread holders for sewing machines that hold all the thread. And again, if you have enough volume and you have a good partner, they will work for you to find a way to get these things recycled. So that's really if I could have looked ahead as I look back, it really is developing those partnerships as you go on and continuing to challenge yourself.
Excellent. Yeah, we've seen situations where companies had 4 or 5 different types of materials and they couldn't get recycling for that because they weren't creating enough quantity. But if they changed their process, so instead of having like number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 plastics, they only have number 3s or something like that, consolidating their material types, reducing their number of types of materials helps them find outlets. Obviously reduction is better, but consolidation is a key strategy to helping helping gain more options to divert waste from landfill.
Dan, if I could add one more thing.
Sure.
After going through the true experience, I wish that we would have done a better job of documenting and a better job of writing policies as we go through this day by day and review the policies every year and make sure they're updated. That is key to me. That did we document? Yes. Did we do a great job? Absolutely not. And has this taught us to do better? Yes.
You got so far. I think one of the things that really surprised me is how amazingly far you guys got without having some of these policies and some of these documentation methods in place. Like you were just doing it, and you're like, yeah, we're doing it, but we don't have like it written down anywhere. So But yeah, you were actually doing it, and that's amazing.
Well, kind of like Mark said earlier, we're just going to do it, and we were like the bull in the china shop, and we were just going to do it. And I think that's how a lot of us start out.
Yeah. So many times people say, "Oh yeah, we're doing it," and then they don't. They go and actually check, and it's not happening. You guys were saying, "Oh yeah, we're doing it," and you were. And that was great. So one of the things, obviously, everyone has an energy meter. Everyone's got a water meter. No one has a waste meter. And when somebody invents one, we're gonna make sure everyone knows about it. But some waste streams and some waste streams are made up of many different materials. So even if you did have a waste meter, it wouldn't necessarily tell you the quality of what's going into those streams. So Dave and Mark, how did you tackle the measurement and verification of your waste streams? And where do you think you can still improve? Or do you have any tips for assuring you that your data is accurate and informing your decision? I know, Mark, this was key for you guys. Let's start with you.
Yeah, it was really the devil's in the detail here, right? So we had to get a better understanding of what was taking place at each specific facility on campus. We have 6 different product divisions, and they're all different processes. So really getting our arms around that, I think, was one of the key elements for us. I already mentioned, basically taking dumpsters and dumping them out and kind of sorting through it to find out what we're doing. To me, that was probably the biggest part of it. The hardest part after that was identifying materials that we thought we might get out of landfill, but there wasn't a clear path to doing so. And so going out and trying to find partners who would take it, and Dave mentioned, some of the waste management systems or companies would be helpful. We did the same thing, trying to determine, can this product actually be recycled? Does it really need to go to a landfill? Kind of segregating those all out, determining how much we were producing, going back to that whole measurement standpoint. And again, just keeping everything separate. I mean, to me, that was so key. We even sent a team of people to a recycling facility so they could see how products were recycled, how they were separated there, especially when you have co-mingled. We thought that would help. We learned a lot about what can happen if your recycling is contaminated with something that shouldn't be there. And then a lot of times it all goes to landfill anyway. As we continued down this path, we had thought we were doing the right thing by recycling one of our waste streams with a particular product, a particular material. And we had a company that was picking it up and taking it away. And so we were counting that. We audited them only to find out that they were taking it and putting it in a landfill. So there was a lot of eye-opening things here, things we uncovered by just getting into that level of detail. Now we've got a pretty good handle on everything that's going on. We still have some areas that we're having difficulty weighing, determining how much weight is going into landfill at this point, but now we're on the 2 and 4 yard dumpsters. We're not on the, anything big at this point, and some of the satellite facilities we need to get on board.
I see in the chat that someone's using Compology, which is the closest thing to a waste meter that we've seen so far. It's still be nice if you could just get a bill, like nice little electrical bill for your waste. But yeah, that's Emily with American Family Insurance. Compology, just for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it is a little camera that goes inside your dumpsters, and it uses photo analytics to attempt to measure the volume within. There's a couple other options that's kind of like the highest end from a waste metering type perspective, but it helps you get a good idea for those smaller front load dumpsters where you're not getting like a compactor. The hauler will give you weights, right? But for the smaller front load dumpsters, they're typically much more difficult to measure, especially if you have diverse facilities, lots of little ones all over the place. And that's one way to kind of be able to measure volume at the pickup level.
Thank you, Emily, by the way, for the tip.
Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion. I mean, we could talk trash for hours, but I wanted to throw that out there, that there are some sensors. WasteCap looked through 20 different sensor companies. 17 of them did not claim they provided products that would work and would not. And there were 3 that provided solutions that worked, and they varying degrees of expense and complexity, and that can be a side discussion. But if anyone wants to explore those options, we can let you know. So for Dave, you mentioned that you've been measuring. I think your records for some materials went back to what, 95 or something like that. So how did you tackle the measurement and verification, especially of some of your maybe more difficult streams?
Yeah, we did. We did back then. We called it an environmental report, and we started collecting data back in 1995 and putting out an annual report. In that, it was, how much we would look at how much cardboard did we purchase this year, how much cardboard did we recycle, and the same with paper. And so the inbound goods coming in, we had that data, and we'd have the data of recycling going out. The way we kind of dug into the measurement is we broke our buildings down into sections, because each department, like a packing department, has different waste than order filling. And we just wanted to make sure that we knew exactly each stream and where that stream came from. And that allowed us to kind of go back in, follow up with the department and finding what they had and what they were doing with it and why it was where it was. To Mark's part, the same thing. We dumpster dive, and we have people who enjoy it, and we do learn a lot. Our first one, we learned a lot, and every single one we continue to learn more and more about the different things we have. The other piece that we learned, and I'll give you a quick example, those little silica pallet pouches, and Dan, you experienced that with us too. And our goal is to, once we dug into it, we found out, yeah, now they do have biodegradable. And so we're moving that direction. There are ways to eliminate items that you're finding in your stream. And that goes by digging through it and researching. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
There's so many ways that could go. So do you have any areas where you think you can still improve in measurement and verification, or do you have tips for some of the people here who may be just starting to do waste audits, just starting to measure, tips for them for assuring that their data is accurate?
Well, yeah, the way, we really based so when we did our baseline, and the following year, you can kind of look back and see if there's a big differential in anything, you have to be able to explain that. Now, COVID, I will say, messed us all up, right? Because we were going through this process in the middle of COVID when a lot of people went home. Easy to explain why we are not using very much printer paper, right? You're going to see these types of things decrease, which is fine as long as you can explain it. And there's a lot of turns in business every year that changes a bit. We would, when we switched we used to put a lot of product going from location to location in the bigger Gaylord boxes. And so that was a number, and we would get 7 uses out of that Gaylord box. But when we switched to metal gurneys, a reusable metal gurney, to eliminate the use of that Gaylord box, right, that kind of now we have a big reduction in cardboard. But it was due to that change that we made, which was a positive change. So, and Mark mentioned this too, as far as recycling, different items that they come up with in their business, we're discovering things like that every day. And every day we have to continue to look at the business and what we're doing. And those dumpster dives help make a big difference in this. The other thing that we've learned during COVID, if someone threw their trash away, we kind of could identify who the heck it was. So we knew exactly who. There were so few people for a while, we knew who threw what where. And so when you break it down by department that way, you really can get to the source of the issue. And then you have to educate all, right? But it really does make a difference when you can get it down to a small enough area. And what we do with our central trash locations, we have it for a department of about 30. So we can really take it down to that level of, here's your group of 30 who threw it in there. Let's educate that group.
Yeah, I remember that waste audit. So there's a couple different types of waste audits for those who are not familiar. There's what we call waste characterization, which looks is that classic dumpster dive where you're taking basically all the material that you generated for a week or a couple of days or whatever, and you're taking it, spreading it out, and sorting that material and finding out, rough quantities and things like that. And waste characterizations are great for telling you where you're at right now with as far as diversion rate and where you could be if everything went in the right place, right? Like Mark Allen mentioned, you find out when you go to visit some of these recycling facilities, especially it's mostly for commingled, but you'll find out like, oh, one person puts like a peanut butter jar in a commingled bin and it ruins almost the entire bag of recyclable paper, right? You thought you put a whole bunch of recyclable paper in there, but putting one contaminant in isn't just it. It doesn't just contaminate that one portion. It contaminates everything around it. So yeah, that's like the outside dumpster. Inside, when you're doing a zero waste audit, you're looking literally like at every bin, or not every bin, but like a sampling of bins throughout your building, and you're hyper localizing your information about what's thrown away, why it's thrown away, what could be changed, what you could do differently. It won't tell you your overall waste diversion rate. It won't tell you where you could be, but it'll tell you that Bob in accounting is the one causing the issues, or it'll tell you that Joan in purchasing knows a way that you can replace all your paper cups with a reusable, coffee mugs or something like that, right? So that's what zero waste audits tell you. They're the ones inside. So obviously for most businesses, zero waste isn't achieved with just a few simple changes like that, right? I'm gonna start with Dave on this one. What were some of the memorable challenges that Lands End faced in their zero waste effort, and how did you overcome them?
Sure. One I think that we all experience is pallets, right? You can get so many uses out of a pallet, and then when they start to fall apart, what do you do with them? And so finding partnerships, and we went through many. We went through many different partnerships, and for a while we did with the Boy Scouts, would use them and they would build stuff out of them. But when you have the volume that we have, they just can't keep up. And so we just continued to we tried a pallet company would take them back, and that worked for a year or two, and that didn't pan out. For the last 5 years now, and I think Dan mentioned this earlier, we partnered with a company that will take our end-of-life pallets. They'll take our pallets, once they can rebuild, they rebuild. End of life, they turn into mulch, and then we buy the mulch back and we put it back on our campus, right? So they chip it up, we get to use it. Other challenges, end-of-life product. What do you do with end-of-life product? It's no longer a wearable garment. And we came up with a way to have it shredded in automotive installation through a reuse that we've been doing that since 2016. And then we have employees who participate. A lot of our product we can cut up. It goes to local churches for quilts, that type of thing. So a lot of employee engagement type things that can kind of help us figure out what to do with some of this stuff. But I mentioned plastics earlier, anything from a spool thread to any odd plastic things. And again, you can get rid of some of them to the local schools for crafts. We found that all of our excess paint, we can donate to the local high schools, and they use them for when they do for the different plays and so forth for background paint. So there's a lot of answers out there within your community. And when you talk to your current contractors of who your partners you're working with for recycling and trash, a lot of options, and you really have to use them all. And talking publicly to all of your employees, they have a lot of great ideas. We also did we have a program, and we stole this directly from eBay. We have a thing called eBay, and we sell office chairs and office furniture, all kinds of stuff, grills, all kinds of stuff that we sell back to our employees. And then we take that money and we call it the Make-A-Wish Fund, and it goes to our employees who are in need. But it's another way to reuse things that we no longer have a use for and give it a second life and a purpose at a really cheap price, because the employees can bid on it. We put a minimum, but it's always really low because we do want to move this stuff out and we do want to give it a second home.
Excellent. Mark, what is a challenge you've faced so far in your journey, and how did you overcome it? And what are some of the next hurdles that you know that you have lined up that you're preparing to tackle?
Right. Boy, there's lots of challenges. So I'll try to pick maybe the biggest one for us was setting the baseline. So when we started this, and again, I had assistants from other companies who had to set baselines as well, and they struggled with it. When we picked the year, we picked 2016 as the year because we had a lot of change occurred after that. And so we wanted to kind of start from a point in time. Going back and trying to get all that documentation for that baseline, we needed assistance from every single department in order to pull that through from operations. I put together a tactical action committee to help with that. And it took us almost, I want to say, a year to really get a good handle on that baseline. So to me, going back, if I could turn back the clock, we would have met. Hey, Dave, we're on the same page here. We should have documented and measured that early on, but you don't know what you don't know. And so in this particular case, that's what we needed to do. Some of the challenges going forward for us is number one, we're not certified yet. We will be going for a true certification, and I hope to open that up by the end of the year, at least apply for it, as we go forward. And I think the biggest challenge going forward will be as we introduce new processes and new materials into the company, what we do to make sure that they're incorporated and that information is captured. That's something that we still have to look at and how we would do that. Again, we're going to need people involved that currently aren't involved today to be able to do that. But I always see that as a challenge. As we grow, how do we maintain that certification going forward?
Excellent. Yes, so many upcoming challenges. You mentioned a good one. You don't know what you don't know, right? And that's always the hardest thing. Obviously, you can't just learn what you don't know. If you're within your own silo, right? You have to kind of get out, talk to other people, question your assumptions, that sort of thing, to really test that out. Zero waste, just like energy efficiency, is achievable, but it must be maintained, right? Dave, you're there. Mark, you're on your way. But you guys have already realized that it's not a one and done effort, right? You can't. It's not like just changing all the light bulbs to LED and there it goes. You're done. You've got to stay on it. Waste is complex. Waste is personal. Every employee makes those decisions every day. All of us make those decisions every day, at home and at work. Whether we put something in the recycling bin or in the trash. So Mark, what do you have any tips for establishing systems or for setting systems up for success? And how are you ensuring that your team can continue this effort as your participants change? Right.
So what we really needed to do here is not have it as a sub team. We needed to, from a system standpoint, we needed to incorporate it into what we're already doing from a business management system. So we needed to integrate it, make it a part of it, so that it cannot be disconnected later on. So it became more of a strategic objective from the senior leadership, but we had to start driving that down. So the environmental management team, that team will be responsible for continuing this, and it'll always be a part of the objectives that we have. So within that framework, I think that's key. What'll help make things easier system-wise for us is truly setting up the right systems, make it easy for people as possible. We have invested in environmental software, which we've done for a while. I mean, I use a portion of it because of, I'm so much into products. We run life cycle assessments and the like on those. And it's taking that same mentality, almost from an accounting perspective, I'll have to say. So I started out my career as a financial analyst for Enerpac, and I saw Enerpac come up. So that's part of my roots. So I'm very detailed oriented when it comes to that, but making sure that you have a good audit system in place as well. And so then that becomes more integrated with our ISO and the 14001 programs that we have. So I'm telling you, if it's off to the side, there's a good chance that it's not going to continue. Leadership changes, different people come in and out. So it's got to be really threaded into your organizational objectives overall.
Great. So Dave, how are you planning on ensuring the success is ongoing?
Yeah, education, really employee education is what we're really pushing. Sharing our results, keeping it forefront in everyone's mind. We do have a sustainability committee that kind of encompasses not only what I do, but what they're doing with product. And so we have a large number of partners, and they are in and out. We have different people coming in, different people going out, at all times. But we need to continue, again, documenting what we're doing, creating the policies, and continuing to grow. We know that, yeah, we did get a true certification. That was like a baby step. Honestly, there is so much more ahead of us. That it was nice to be recognized, but nice to have validation that we did some things right. We certainly did not do everything right, and it was pointed out to us quite clearly when I read through the eval, right, that we have a lot of things that we can improve on. And so it just takes that daily dedication from an entire corporate perspective to keep rolling the ball forward out in front of you and keep it going.
Great. I know, Dave, also I wanted to squeeze this in maybe. You mentioned changing the silica packets in your products from the standard options to it's like a clay, right? Option that's biodegradable. You also mentioned material take back and some things like that. How is Lands End extending this zero waste philosophy into your product design, or maybe how's this process made you think more about how you package and design products and package and develop your products basically?
Yeah, and from a soft goods perspective like this, a lot goes into packaging. And so when you kind of break that down, and you're going to see it a lot in the market. I can remember buying a shirt 20 years ago, and you had a big stiff cardboard piece in the collar. You had 50 pins stuck all the way around it. And you don't see that anymore. A lot of that has gone away. And a lot of that has gone away because of people analyzing exactly what they're putting into that package and sending it out to a customer. As far as the silica pack, that's part of that process too. We always trying to find ways to eliminate what you have in packaging where you can. Silica is an important piece in a lot of products, right? It's never going to go away. So we have to find what is the safest and most environmentally safest product we can use. So when we look at product, if you get a chance to check out our website at some point in time, you can see that we're really focused on water reduction when it comes to making our products. You're going to see that's the theme that we're it's not just recycling here on campus. It's in the product, it's in the packaging. And it is an overview of the entire corporation that we're all trying to have that same goal of making things better as we move along and improve on them.
Excellent. We've spoken about, I know we're doing a really broad sweep today, right? We're just kind of trying to hit a lot of topics, kind of pepper the field of our audience today with ideas. We've talked about some opportunities and revelations already, and there's so much more. 20 years that you have of experience doing this at Lands End, and Mark Allen at Inpro. What were some of the experiences you had, tools you used that you think could help some of the aspiring business leaders and change makers in the audience to engage with their teams, to engage with management? I guess, what were some of the tools, philosophies, and means of engagement that you felt were really critical to your success, and how did you go about implementing them? I guess we'll start with Dave on this one.
Okay. We were always big on, and still are, Earth Day celebrations. Always big on ways to engage employees. So we do things in our campus that we have corporate gardens, right? So an employee can get a plot of land and they can plant a garden. Doing these things to engage them into sustainability. As far as tools, our tools really have been the data that we collect, and we continue to collect that data. And that data tells stories. People are always interested in, so we try to do an analogy such as, if we recycle fiber, well, how many stocking caps can you make out of that fiber that you recycled, right? So it's more of this pictorial of the mind of the things that you're doing, or with the amount of paper that we recycled, how many, the amount of paper we reduced, for example, over 2020 and 2021 during pandemic, how many trees did we save? Always trying to tell a story with what we're doing. It works well for our groups. It engages our groups. It gives them something tangible they can actually put with our recycling efforts.
So Mark, do you have, kind of on the same lines, do you have recommended strategies and resources that you felt were really critical to focusing your efforts on the biggest opportunities and driving that message with your employees?
Yeah, and I think it's part of our culture. And so when I mentioned before, we like to thread things in. So we have, with the tools we use, we do a lot of Six Sigma. We've got a lot of green belt certifications here on campus. We encourage people to go down that path because it's a repeatable process that we can use for almost anything, for almost any department, to be able to go through that. When we do that, we're not, I mean, this isn't typically managers. This is people from the shop floor. These are people who may be on the phone. I mean, these are across the board. And so we give them a lot of visibility and a lot of resources at their disposal to go through. So they become the leaders in whatever it is that they're going the project is going to take them. And so one of the biggest successes we've ever had from not just a diversion rate, but also I think from a cost saving standpoint, was through a Six Sigma project, trying to eliminate what we call dust. We create a lot of dust in our solid surface operation. And it's because the sheets need to be, milled and sanded and the like. And so this whole Six Sigma project, at the end of the day, yielded a 1/3 reduction in overall dust generation and improved our yield rate tremendously. And so, I mean, that's just one example about how we try to engage employees. It's just a matter, we don't want them to participate. We want them to take ownership of it. And we've been doing this for a long time. So it's not just for the zero waste goal, it's just incorporated into it. The other thing I'll mention is that, and I just did this yesterday, in new employee training, I spent 45 minutes talking to our new employees that we bring on board about our sustainability efforts and what we do. I mentioned all 3 committees we have. We have a corporate sustainable business committee. We've got the EMS team, obviously, working on that. And then we have our other goal team that works on it. And just to try to get them to participate in some way, shape, or form in it. But I think it's really making that connection. We're finding that more of the new employees coming on board have more of a personal connection to want to reduce waste and basically do whatever environmental stewardship they can, more than like my generation, being fully transparent, being a boomer. I'm not sure I really knew what sustainability was. I knew a little bit about recycling back in the 70s, but we've come a long way. There's a real passion out there for people coming and wanting to work for companies that take this seriously, because I think they do. And they can bring their personal, at home practices that they do. And sometimes we teach them on a residential standpoint what to do. So through lunch and learns, for instance. So there's a lot of engagement tools I think that companies can put in. Big one is communication, transparency, not just doing the right thing or saying the right things, but doing the right things. I think that all kind of plays into it. So this whole conglomerate of, you've got to have the right tools and you got to get the right people on the bus to make it work. It never goes away. And it's probably one of everybody probably on this call. That's one of the challenges, to try to get that culture in place, just to make sure that that continues and it has, there's a legacy here to follow.
Yeah, I think I really like that, your comment there about empowering your team, not just engaging, but empowering them to take action. I'm sure Dave can also agree that many hands make for less work.
Definitely.
You can get other people to come up with the ideas. And part of that feeds into, Mark, you mentioned you don't know what you don't know. And I'm going to go for one of our bonus questions right away, just because we keep tapping on that. So both for Dave and Mark, obviously a challenge that we come across when we start to work with companies to reduce their waste is that they don't know what they don't know. How would you or what would you say, Mark and Dave, to some of the companies that are on this call? How would you challenge them to take those leaps of faith, to find outside perspectives, or to verify, internal assumptions? This is kind of an ephemeral question, but like how do you get to that point? What are some ways that you can help other people get to that point to start to ask, those introspective, do I really know what I'm doing, or reaching outwardly, getting them to engage with others?
Yeah, I can say what we did back in the 90s, earlier 90s, when we were first starting out, we actually called in our recycler and our trash haulers, and we called in a couple of nonprofits to come on our site. We showed them excess things that we have, what we have on a regular basis. And we actually developed partnerships back then that are still going today. There are people out there who do want your old stuff. And we find that a lot. And so reach out to nonprofits, reach out to your waste haulers. They can really, really give you a quick, good education on, we have a home for this, we have a home for that, we don't have a home for this type thing. And the nonprofits, really, number one, you're helping them, they're helping you. And that's a great relationship when you're both winners coming out of it.
So Mark, how would you convince others to make those leaps of faith? Obviously you did when you brought us on.
Right, and I there's a business case for this, right? Mm-hmm. So, all the myths about sustainability costing companies money to get there. I needed to dispel that with some of my own colleagues in the very beginning days, and just looking at it from the standpoint that, we're going to save money here as well. So this is part of, it's not only, doing the right thing for the environment, but we're going to take cost out of our organization during the process of it. And I think that's really key. So that was kind of an easy sell at this point. And I think for companies 20 years ago, that would have been a really hard sell. But I think really senior leadership does understand the benefits to their own profitability as well. And again, the employee engagement and culture are important. For me personally, though, just, I'm curious. I'm a curious guy, right? So, I needed to reach out and talk to a lot of people who I thought could help. And so I just started picking up the phone. I find that the community of experts in this area are extremely helpful and generous. The person I talked to in Italy, that was eye-opening for me. It was almost an hour and a half conversation, and just took me down a different path and a different mindset. And then I brought that back to Inpro, all excited about it. And then trying to get that enthusiasm embedded in my colleagues and other people as well. But it's a learning journey. It's not just it's educational. So you really got to start digging in. One of the things I would recommend for anybody, whether you want to get certified or not, try to understand the elements within as an example, the true certification itself. I think there's 7 different principles, and then it digs down deeper. It just gives you a general understanding, just going through it, about what it is to be a compliant in that area. And then you start getting an idea of, well, let's see, where are the gaps? I'm not sure how I'm going to close that gap. So guess what? I'm going to call Dave, because he went through the same thing, right? So, I talked to a lot of colleagues through WSBC because we were of like mind in that. But there's other companies I've reached out to too, and I'll just throw Cree Lighting was one of them, because they achieved true. And so we got a tour We spent half a day and they went through all their trials, tribulations, things they would have done different, their challenges. That's how you learn. You know, personally for me, if anybody wants to reach out to me, I know we're not certified yet, but I'd be willing to talk and share as much as I know at this point in time and probably learn something in return based on that. But yeah, it's an educational process for sure. And there's a lot to study, there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot to then reteach to other people. So that's what you can expect, I think, from all of this.
Excellent. Yeah, the true certificate, once we internalized the true manual, basically, we changed the way we approached. You know, we've been doing this for 25 years, right? But there's always ways to learn, or you're always learning more. I think maybe I will fully understand waste in about 200 years. So, but when we internalized True, we realized that it gave us a full toolbox of means and methods to use from everyone who's just starting their journey, just trying to figure out how much waste they're even producing, what waste are they even producing, all the way through someone who's really looking to get peak performance. And you know, our work with other companies in general taught us they reduce, because it's just so much more cost effective. We use for people who are just kind of grasping the concept, we use a pallet of paper as an example. In Milwaukee, to throw away a pallet of paper will cost you $4. To you know, a tire pallet full of paper, right, cost you about $4. To put it in commingled recycling, it'll cost you $3, so you save $1. To send it to a paper recycler will cost you about $1 to $2, so you might save $2. To not buy it in the first place saves you $1,500, and that's pretty much how it goes, right? Mark, you learned that with the you know, just buying thinner sheets of plastic for your base product, you know, getting it closer to what you're actually using, so you don't have to mill off as much. Massive savings right there.
No, absolutely. It's a big journey. We picked 2025, so we started this 2 years ago. I think we've made good progress up to this point, but we put that out there for a reason. Inpro, usually we like to have everything done in a year. So that's how our tactical action committees are formed. And in 12 months, we're going to be right here. This one we know is much longer time frame for us, and we got that advice from other companies as well.
I'm just checking time here. We've got about 15 minutes on the clock. We could talk trash for hours. We know that. But we have a really diverse audience today, and I'd like to tow the waters and see if we can turn some questions to them. And Jesse, you might help us out with, I don't know if people can unmute themselves, but for our first question, what resources, I think this would be really great, because we talked about, you know, sharing ideas in community is really important. And the WSBC is an excellent resource just for connections, as well as, you know, a full library of materials there. But for the people on the call, what kind of resources would you like to see from the WSBC to help your teams discover what they don't know about their waste streams, to measure and verify, to plan and strategize, to troubleshoot challenges, or to receive outside acknowledgement for achievements? And I know that's a big question with a lot of possibilities, but for our audience, where are you looking for help? And Jesse, are they able to just unmute themselves or?
They are able to unmute themselves. Yep. If you want to share, feel free. If you want to type it in the chat, you could do that as well. And the only other question I think we had in the chat, and I think you spoke to this a little bit, but I just wanted to reiterate it since it's such a common question we get, is about shop floor engagement, right? Just how do you do that? How do you track? How do you monitor? How do you engage, you know, just frontline staff, no matter what your business is, in sort of compliance and all that. And I mean, I heard education, but if you could say a little bit more about that, give folks time to think about what resources and tools you might want from us. We can come back to that and or put it in the chat, please.
Yeah, sure. And Mark spoke about empowerment too, you know, engaging through turning the reins over. One of the things we see a lot of businesses. We are not an expert in every business. But we know that the people on the shop floor, you know, the people in the offices, they're the experts at their business. So our strategy is to ask the questions, right? To get them thinking about the solutions. But yeah, if anyone wants to unmute and ask, or we could pile up some resource recommendations or requests in the chat. In the meantime, for like a minute or two more, we can have Mark and Dave talk about engagement.
Yeah, one of the things that education, you're right, is not enough. Just to point it out, I mean, the awareness is certainly a starting point, but it's not the ending point. And until something becomes habitual, a habit, because we love our routines, right? We love our habits. And in operations, you have your routines because you want repeatable process, you want repeatable quality and the like. In this case, it needs to be built into the whole system again. And I think that's how you make it stick. Otherwise, these programs become here today, gone tomorrow. We used to call it flavor of the day. And those were great and exciting when they started. And then 6 months later, someone would say, "Hey, are we still doing that?" And you go, "I don't know." And then you have to check it out, right? So, but yeah, and so that's why I think that's really, really important. And it's just getting everybody on the same page with it too. But if it's written into work instructions, let's say, you know, even your maintenance department knows what to do. People are aware around you and are willing to participate and help and point things out, just like your safety program. You know, we do safety audits. We do a waste stream audit and find out. And so we do those now. I think that's all important. And then you become very visible. Cree Lighting pointed this out to us because all of their waste audit teams are on the shop floor, and they have a very designated time, and they have check sheets that they go through, and they'll go out and they'll audit certain sections of their plant at a time. And I tell you what, I mean, there was about half a dozen employees in that tour that were doing this, and we were just kind of shadowing them, and they were extremely critical of themselves about that shouldn't be there, that should be over here, or this looks very good, very passionate. And I think that's what makes it work all the way down to that level, because I know from where I am in the organization, I would not be able to control any of that from where I am. The only thing I do is provide the resources, the means, and the encouragement. But they're the ones that have to pick up the ball. They're the ones that have to be self-motivated to do it.
Yeah, to Mark's point, we about 5-6 years ago, we implemented 5S in all of our buildings, which small teams that organize their, for example, the packing area, they have a team of 5 to 10 people who went through, worked with the other employees to organize. And these audits take place monthly on a rotating basis. And they're always surprise audits. You know, we don't want to, you want it to be how it is. And that's where you learn the most and make the most improvements. So we've kind of tied, to Mark's part, we've tied safety into this. Sustainability is part of this. Even trash containers, the labeling, all of this, it just becomes a monthly process, or to them, it's a daily process. And we just get the opportunity to audit it on a monthly basis.
Great. I'm going to throw another one out to the audience. See if we can't get anyone to engage from that end. And then we have more, like we still have more questions to go through. We've got time, but for the audience, maybe you could put it in the chat. You could put where you think you are today and where you would like to be. And we'll go to Dave and Mark while you guys are responding in chat. We mentioned continuous improvement a couple of times in different ways. How does your zero waste program connect with your organization's existing continuous improvement program? Obviously, the processes, the thought processes, Six Sigma, continuous improvement is all the same. You want to apply that to water, to energy, to waste. But within your company, how do you, or does it at all connect to existing continuous improvement programs? Your waste reduction efforts, do they connect to the existing continuous improvement programs?
Well, at Inpro, they're treated the same as any other. So in our organization, we love rewarding people. And so if you have a project, you can submit an application for it. And there's a committee that goes through it, and basically it's a cash award. They did different levels, bronze, silver, gold, and what you get, but those initiatives they're really the same, whether it be zero waste or something else in the organization. It just has to be notable. Some of them are small, but they're impactful, so they get recognized. But I think recognizing, again, it goes back to recognizing people for doing good work. And that's part of our program as well. But just to repeat, I mean, it needs to be all together. It can't be an outlier type of program for us.
Okay. And Dave, is waste reduction separate from the rest of the continuous improvement efforts at Lands End, or are they integrated, and how do they engage each other?
They're completely integrated. And Mark actually pointed this out a bit ago. Take a pallet, for example. It costs money to buy a pallet. And so if we can fix a pallet or reuse a pallet, and it costs money to buy mulch, well, if we can take our pallet and make mulch. So every company is always trying to save money. And as Mark indicated, with recycling, there's certain aspects of recycling that you can generate some good income that offset the ones that you have to pay to get this out of here. Taking the safety, sustainability, all this together, employee innovative ideas can actually drive new business, save the company money. So when you put the complete package together, even though I personally stumble along at times, make mistakes at times, all of this is okay because we still have that same goal at the end of the day.
Great. We have one question from the audience that maybe, Jesse, it might be easier for me to answer offline to send a response. They asked, do you have any tips for tracking waste at multifamily or multi-tenant buildings? How do you handle dumpster corrals that aren't large enough to handle resident generated waste? And any tips for building occupant engagement, which of course is building occupant engagement residential engagement is much different than employee engagement. But some of the things that, for example, even Mark brought up about empowerment is also really useful for tenants. right? But I can answer that offline. One of the areas that WasteCap also engages, waste is so complex, right? One of the areas we also engage is with building design teams to ensure that the new buildings coming out, because we see it a lot still, that new buildings being built hamstring their owners by limiting the waste management infrastructure in the building. You know, a dumpster corral that's only fits one dumpster. How are you going to recycle, right? You must have trash. So how do you recycle? Building loading docks where like the overhang is just a little bit too much to prevent like a front load garbage truck from picking up their load. You know, things like that we see a lot still, and there are ways to tackle those. They get very specific and kind of very complex, but I could reach out to that individual after the call. We are right about 2 minutes before, so Jesse, I guess we'll turn it over to you for some closing comments.
Sounds good.
Contact information, etc.
Yeah, sounds good. So thank you everyone who participated. I know a few people had to drop off at the hour, but I still, this was such a valuable conversation. These do get recorded and put in the member portal. And so I had a few people asking me about that. So you can always find it in the recordings inside your member portal. And of course, we're a resource. We always want to support you on your sustainability journey. So such a great question Dan asked in terms of what you need from us. If there's anything specifically, please feel free to reach out. We're a great resource. And if we don't necessarily have the right resource or tools, we have a lot of partners like WasteCap that do. So don't be afraid to reach out. And I just want to thank each of you for being here today. I do really appreciate your time and energy and effort in putting this together. Mark and Dave are board members to WSBC, so they're great contributors and supporters of this work long term. So thank you, both of you, for your service and being here. And my email is just Jessie, Jessy, at wisconsinsustainability.com if you have any follow-up. So I will leave it at that.